Very good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for being here today. When I was told that we'll be talking about selfies to self-care, I myself have so many thoughts on it that I was glad that we are having a full-fledged conversation. So to begin with, in today's day and age, when there is such an unprecedented explosion of the selfie culture, who do you think is in the driver's seat? Is it looking good that is driving us to take all the selfies? Or is it that because we are taking the selfies, so we are tending more towards self-care?
First of all, I just want to bring a very interesting fact to mind. Did you know that about 100 years ago, less than 100 years ago, even mirrors were not usual. Many people did not have mirrors in their home. Most people had never seen their own face. This is less than 100 years ago. Can you imagine that mirrors were it was a very rare thing. Only very, very wealthy people may have a mirror or what you call a looking glass in their homes. So, आप ये सोचिए कि 100 years ago, most people never even looked at their own face. And now look what's happening today. Meaning, how many times do we look at our own face? Every single day. How many times? So it's a huge shift. It's a huge mental shift in the way that we're thinking about ourselves. And this way of thinking is affecting so many parts of our life. And I actually am very concerned about the young people growing up today, because when we grew up, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have access to the internet. I mean, I got my first phone when I went to college, and itna bada sa, I remember it was itna bada sa Nokia phone. So we never grew up with phones, but today's children who are continuously on screens and are always looking at themselves from the time they're less than 1 year old doing FaceTime. They're all doing FaceTime with their family members, and they mostly love it because they're seeing pictures of themselves. It's a very, very new, it's an entirely new neurological connection in our brain. So it's quite a dangerous place, a dangerous territory that we're really in, that we're treading.
That is exactly what I want to touch upon, because needless to say, the selfie culture has induced beauty standards. And beauty and the beauty industry has a whole new face to it as this is kicked in. You have a self-perception, self-image, and sometimes you think that you're falling short of it. You feel inadequate. You think in that sense, we need to very consciously draw a line of what our self-care practice should be and how we can responsibly practice a selfie culture?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question today. The reason is that on one side you have people who are more conscious, and they are made more conscious because every time you post a picture, the first reaction is, how is she looking? How is he looking? When you meet somebody, and especially at least in India, the first thing either they will say you have lost weight or you have gained weight. So imagine the amount of pressure a selfie would put, because now you are sharing with thousands and thousands of people who are judging you. So first is the mental pressure which I see amongst society, and it's faced more by women than men. Because subconsciously, women have been told that looking good is important for your acceptance. And that is a tragedy, because most women as young girls, when they grow up in a wedding, the girl is said she's pretty, and the boy is said he's successful. And that's a tragedy, because a lot of women have worked hard in their professions, and yet they are measured for how they look. Now, the point number 2 is the quick fix. Now, what happens when you try to quick fix rather than having a sustained practice of loving your body, loving yourself, taking care of yourself is, so what I see is that first is women despise themselves because of their bodies, subconsciously. And that's a tragedy again. Because when you despise yourself, you open the doors for surgeries. You open the doors for all kinds of surgeries, which could be from physical correction, cosmetic correction, which you don't need. You're absolutely fine. And the second could be for liposuction, for everything possible. There are a lot of surgeries being done for virginity. So what I'm trying to say is it just changes a woman's psyche into looking a certain way. And that's it. That's what is the problem today. That they have to fit a box.
But Ira, I would want your opinion on that, because would you also say that somewhere wanting to take a selfie becomes a sense of motivation? So you want to look good, be beautiful, project yourself a certain way, or would you think that it is slowly not moving in the right direction mentally, because at the end of it you're subjecting yourself to the number of likes and the number of views you're getting?
Yes, it's a very slippery slope that we're on, that from looking into our mirrors to say how are we looking today, into your image deciding how you feel today. You know, that's something which is a very slippery slope. And as we were talking about this, I actually fast forwarded to my life like 20 years. I'm almost 40. I'm almost 40 now. And I rewinded 20 years ago when I was a participant in the Miss India pageant. You know, I was a participant in the Miss India pageant, and I was from a very good college. I had gotten a very good scholarship to study in a college abroad, and I came to do this beauty pageant on a whim. And I walked out of this pageant because I couldn't even at that age, the thought of being judged for the way that I looked was something I couldn't handle. You know, I just couldn't, that wasn't something that sat right. And I actually ended up writing a book about that pageant, which became really a bestseller and kickstarted my career as a writer, and which then further went on to a deeper consciousness about wellness and teaching yoga, and that becoming something that I wanted to give to this world. But it's also the passage of time. You know, for me at that age, thinking that this was the way that I looked would define me, into that journey that this had nothing to do with who I was. And then as you age, you realize even more how fleeting the way that you look is, and how it really doesn't matter. But what's more important is the state of your own mind. And that's what my yoga journey led me to, that it's not the state of my face, it's not the state of my career. Ultimately, what's making me happy is the state of my mind. And if the state of your mind is correct, then no matter what happens to you in life, you know, your life will always remain balanced. Like no matter जो भी आपकी जिंदगी में हो रहा है, अगर आपकी स्थिरता मन की रहती है, तो आप कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. You know, and then that's slowly how things progressed. So it really is a journey, but it took me, you know, it started for me much later because we weren't exposed to so much, but I now see that things are happening at a much younger age, so that actually makes our job, you know, very important, that we have to start spreading that awareness, you know, much more so, that it's not the state of your face, it's not the state of your body, it's the state of your mind which will ultimately make you a successful human being. It's not how much money you make, it's not how much fame you get. And it's interesting because now I'm in Mumbai and I teach and I interact with some of the most famous people, you know, in Bollywood, and I understand that it doesn't matter how you look, it's ultimately the state of your mind. And wo log itni fitness, physical level pe, itna fame, itna paisa, but the mind is not still, and that can still lead to a very unhappy person, you know, which will then lead to that unhappiness can then manifest into many conscious and subconscious disease. So that's how the trajectory goes. So it's just, you know, educating now on nutrition, which is the first, really the first pillar of health, and then moving forward becomes very important.
And for practitioners like you, you're out there, you're putting out the message on nutrition, on yoga. So much emphasis is laid on me time, connecting with yourself, taking a walk in the woods, meditating. Would you, in equal force, put out the message of taking a digital detox every now and then?
Yes. so, so let's talk about what the mind is. The mind is an instrument. It's an instrument by which you understand your external world. Now, this instrument, how it is getting influenced, A, and how it is finding stillness, where you find your happiness, is B. If you are constantly distracted by a WhatsApp message, by a phone, by a Instagram post, by a Facebook, what happens is your mind is constantly bombarding you with negativity. Now, why I say negativity is because the mind does not give you any positive information, and this is not I'm quoting from myself, these are things which I'm quoting from the Vedas. Okay, so first I'll give you a little bit about why I moved into nutrition and Vedas. Is because I trained as a medical doctor. I was working in the ICU in GB Pant Hospital, and two things stunned me. The first thing which stunned me was that we were getting patients at the fag end of their disease. That means they were just coming to die in the hospital. So we as doctors were waiting that please first get so ill, then we even look at you. So the standard thing was kuch nahi hua. Blood test mein nahi aaya, kuch nahi hua. So you're waiting for people to really fall ill and then come. And I said, this is illogical. The second thing was, in GB Pant Hospital, you have a cardiology super specialization unit and you have a neuropsychiatry. Many doctors were addicts because they were taking the drugs themselves. Now it might be different, but they had become addicted. Now, why would a smart super specialist get addicted to a drug? Because to calm the mind. Because the mind is throwing constantly, you are not good, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, this is pathetic, there's a deadline. How will you calm the mind? Now, the reason why we are talking about mental health is thanks to technology. I'm not saying technology is good or bad. Technology is like a knife. You have to know how to use it. You cannot be a slave to technology. You cannot be a slave to your mind. And technology disrupts your mind. Technology, even if you're constantly on the phone, will disrupt your breathing. And if your breathing is disrupted, your complete energy engine is disrupted. So what I'm trying to say is that many people, you send them a message, within seconds they will reply. Why? Why should they reply within seconds? Why? Because they get gratification. Oh, you're so quick. So for that, so the society is telling you quick responses mean you're good. But what is this whole quick response about? It is about the need of somebody to reach out to you at their demand. So you are on demand, you're playing on demand. So what I'm trying to say is when you talk about convenience foods, the convenience foods has poison inside it. The number of artificial preservatives and chemicals, they're disrupting your biochemical engine. So, but how casually we say, oh, it's junk food, it's going to make you put on weight. You know, it's almost like a poison inside your bodies, and yet we only very casually say, oh, it's junk food, it will make you put on weight. No, it will kill you. It will kill your mind first, and then it will kill your body. So what I'm trying to say is, if this continues, don't be surprised. So again, I'm going to give you an example. The difference between the West and the East is, and I'm sorry if I start taking names, Michael Jackson, suicide. Marilyn Monroe, suicide. King of Pop, suicide. Elvis Presley, suicide. Why so many suicides? Because they damage their mental health completely. My fear is the same thing will come to India, and you will see people at the prime of their career committing suicide, which is their mind gone wrong. Yeah.
All right. But, you know, Ira, social media, Instagram, at one end we talk about the gap between carefully edited pictures and what the reality is. On the other end, there are leading celebrities who are putting out pictures of their bare, pigmented skin, showing their freckles off, telling the world that no, we are not picture perfect. So, in that sense, do you see a sense of ownership that women are now taking about what our bodies are? It's not about fat or thin, it's not about fair or dark, and that is helping correct the mindset.
100%. I think even Fair and Lovely changed their name, right? They changed their name into something else. Yes, yes. See, even they changed their name, right? That cream which everyone knows about, Fair and Lovely, even they've had to do it. So I think there's a very positive movement, a very positive, body positive movement, which is also spreading. It's an underlying current, because when you see things escalated at such a level, there has to be a reverse action. You know, there has to be a reverse action. That is happening. Their counterculture is happening, where women are, you know, whether it's skin color, whether it's body positivity, whether it's self-care and self-love, all of these movements are definitely beginning. And also a wellness movement. There really is a very strong wellness movement. Even with yoga, I remember when I started, you know, there was Baba Ramdev, and then there was me, and that was it. You know, that was kind of the parallel. And I remember I guess I'm not allowed to say channel names maybe on this channel, but there was a national channel that I was doing a show on, and they used to say ki agar aap please, you know, sleeveless mat pehniye because ye yoga hai. So I was like, okay. I said, but it's more comfortable and people can see what I'm doing and they see the shape of the body that I'm making so they can follow me. I said, no. But I used to say ki Baba Ramdev to langot mein karte hain, aap unko thodi na kuch bol rahe hain. You know, it's only sort of this is not fair. So I feel like even then, you know, we've come very far away from then when I started to now, and there's so much more acceptance, because there's more acceptance of women's bodies. There's more acceptance of women's bodies, of what they're wearing, and it first begins with ourselves, then it moves to others. And that's how it really happened. And I really remember all of this, and now I said, my gosh, would any of this really matter now? You know, so I'm definitely seeing all of it, all of this entire movement. I think it's very positive. It's a hugely positive movement, but it needs to, because there's so much happening on one side with the selfie culture. You know, there's even something now called, I forget, there was a terminology, right? When people were actually like, there was so many deaths being caused by selfies because people were always taking selfies, and like there was accidents, right? There was a specific name to this sort of death because people were taking selfies. So it's very much, it's addictive to the brain, and actually there's science behind it. It's dopamine. You know, every time we're on social media, every time we're seeing Instagram posts, it's a little bit of dopamine in the brain which is released. So your brain becomes addicted to this. You know, scrolling is a neurological addiction. It's like caffeine, it's like nicotine, it's like a drug. It's like a very, very, very tiny dose of a drug that we take it over and over again, becomes addictive. So you'll see it. It's become such a natural habit. We got to reach for our phones because we need that dopamine hit. We need to see what's happening on our phones. You know, it draws our attention. It's like watching an action-packed movie. You know, when you're watching an action movie, why are we so glued to the screen? We're like, wow, what's going on? It's because there's so much action that it's a dopamine hit. You know, so that's exactly what's happening now. It is truly a small addiction of sorts, maybe a big addiction. When we wake up in the morning first thing, what do? Most people, they're looking at their phones, they're falling asleep to their phones. I feel like even the way that human bodies, like the thumb is going to be longer, you know, as evolution happens, because there's so much phone usage that, you know, human beings now, they're going to genetically evolve to have longer limbs with their phones and things like that. So,
but, you know, at one end, they say that you should constantly remind yourself that self-care is not always Instagrammable. I can say for a fact that, you know, being a new mother, Instagram hugely helped me with information on how women deal with the blues, on how to handle a baby, on how to, go after self-care. Even as a professional, you don't always have the time to come to you to practice yoga or take tips on nutrition, but your social media pages give us those little tips and tricks to that we can inculcate in our daily lives to make those lifestyle changes. So in that sense, you think that the digital age is also helping us put the right focus and strike the right conversations on self-care?
Yes. So, see, I love technology. I mean, it may not have come across like that so far, but I love technology. Now, why I love technology? Because it's a tool for efficiency. So, like, for example, that till before Insta and Facebook came, it was only television which could showcase people's work. Now, the interesting thing about Instagram and social media is that anybody in any part of the world or any part of the country, irrespective of what you can afford, can get access to quality content. At the same time, they can also themselves be business people, entrepreneurs, showcasing their products. So it's a great democratization of communication. So initially, if you see, it was just the national newspapers and some local dailies. And then it was, of course, before that was radio, and then it was television. But that's it. But now there's a lot of democratization of information. So yes, it does help. I would say anything, any powerful thing, whether it's a nuclear energy or whether it is it's technology, it has to be balanced. So when I say balance, it means that yes, today somebody can stand up and say this product is not good because it has so much of XYZ components, and big companies stand up and they have to respond that there is a problem with the product. At the same time, with social media, hate speeches, targeting, trolling, mental bullying is also there. So I feel what is very important is to use this tool like a tool and to teach everybody how to use it like a tool. Whether it's, like I said, a knife or it's a vehicle which can become, a death agent itself. So the tool has to be used in a way which I think we have to train people. Now, why I'm giving you this example is, I don't know how many mothers are there, but if you try to take away a phone from a teenager, there'll be an anger reaction. You don't give the teenager food, no response. I mean, they'll be fine. I won't eat. You try taking away a phone. Now, these are classical addictive symptoms. So what I'm trying to say is that somewhere I think we have to introspect and teach ourselves how to deal with this new challenge, which is a blessing. But every blessing has a side which needs to be monitored and learned. So I think that, of course, before I finish, I want to tell you, of all the blessings for women, technology is the biggest one. Technology has given so much power to women in their hands, it's unbeatable. So I think that's one of the biggest positives I see in technology.
And as we are on the verge of wrapping this conversation, I want to ask you both, what was your dare to dream moment?
What moment?
Dare to dream moment.
Dare to dream moment. Shikhaji, why don't you start the dare to dream moment?
I think dare to dream moment. Okay, there were several of them. But the day I felt that I felt gratitude and I felt responsible for whatever I've got was the day, and it's a long story, but I was invited by the Prime Minister, Mr. Vajpayee, to advise him. That day I asked myself that it's obviously not my talent. There is a higher force which is helping me. And if that higher force is helping me, I need to be more conscientious and more committed and more introspective about whatever I'm doing. So, till a certain age, and there are a lot of youngsters I see, it's all about making your parents proud. Then it's about fulfilling your own dreams, that, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this. But a stage comes when you realize that a talent or anything you get is a gift from the universe. So, thank you. So that was my first time when I actually dared to dream big and decided I will work in this field and make sure nutrition becomes the first call or first port of call for healthcare.
And
You so my journey is a little different because I feel that my journey is such an unplanned journey, really a gift. A spiritual journey is truly a gift, it's a blessing. And it's a tough journey, it's possibly the toughest journey, but it really comes as a blessing. So I remember my teacher had told me that for 10 years, after I'd become, he's like, you should not look at yoga as a source to earn any money. You should improve your skills and increase your depth of knowledge before you start using this as a tool to earn an income or support your life. I said, okay, ab teacher ne bola hai. In yoga, we have great respect for our teachers and our gurus. So I did this, and I remember I would have free classes in the park. In Lodi Garden, I would have free classes, or pehli class ki, to only one person came, and that person was my mom. And mom bhi walk pe chale gayi. She said ki हाँ chalo class hai, chalo मैं भी walk के लिए जा रही थी, and I just sat there. I said, अरे यार ये क्या हो रहा है? And then 10 years later, just blessing after blessing, maybe all the people that I just taught for free, and थोड़े से लोग start हुए mom के बाद in Lodi Garden. It was called Yoga Sunday. We used to gather in Lodi Garden, and जिसको भी आके yoga करना था, हम लोग करते थे. Then 10 years later, I see myself almost close to a decade later, जब International Yoga Day हुआ था, सबसे पहला राजपथ पे, and in front of me, I was teaching that class, and in front of me were so many yoga mats that I couldn't see the last student. So many yoga mats, and I thought to myself on that stage, wow, from being in that class where there was my mom who also left, to teaching a class and that class at the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest class ever conducted in yoga. So that moment made me realize that sometimes so much of our life is not in our control. Who would have imagined? I said ki whatever I would have dreamt, isse to beyond hi ho gaya. I would not have dreamt of this. And I said, when you surrender, so many beautiful things begin to happen, when we really surrender. So I think that art of surrendering, that art of just being able to somehow let go, doesn't mean we stop working hard. I worked very hard. Hard to bahut mehnat ki. I hated waking up in the morning. That was number one. Subah utne ka hi man nahi karta tha, especially Delhi ki sardi. We all know how it is, But subah ut ke practice karna, logon se ko sikhana. I remember this was such a small but real struggle, like a real struggle of blood, sweat, and tears, literally. But, it taught me the art of surrendering. And I think that art of surrendering, where we work hard, get life to flow like a river. Jahan pas flow kar rahe ho, and the roadblocks come, but jaise pani na, jaise patthar hota hai, bas nikal jata hai side se, and it ultimately reaches the destination. So I started approaching life like this, and it's really helped me. It's really helped me deal with the circumstances that come into your life as a woman. Because even for me, since the age of 18, sabse bada, a huge struggle was marriage. Parents would also say, "Aap bas yoga karte rehte ho, isliye shaadi nahi ho rahi." I said, "Huh?" Like, she's doing all the yoga, doing yoga or writing books, so uski shaadi nahi ho rahi. My parents, who are very educated people, are saying this. And Abibi, such a huge struggle, for women in our country. Really, it's real. So finally, I actually said ki, as a rebellion, shadi karo hi mat, like. But finally, about 6 months ago, I did get married. But this was a partner of my choice, someone who I knew could support my life, And not the reverse, not because society told me to do. So I think that's still a very major struggle that we all face as women. But jab surrender hua, to pati bhi mil gaya, acha wala. So ye bhi hota hai. So really, I think that's my dare to dream or dare to surrender story.
I think we are ending this conversation on a beautiful note. I want to thank you both for having this conversation in the first place, because I think Gen Z in particular is going to have a tough time in drawing that fine balance between selfies and self-care. So on that note, a huge round of applause for our guests this evening.
I was thinking over there कि एक पूरे सबके साथ selfie लेंगे यहाँ stage पे. But I guess that would be totally inappropriate now. But I'm sure you all will share the pictures. Yeah, we'll take it in one corner.